Yo, welcome to the Bellator 161 Vivisection. This is Zane Simon. I am joined by Eddie Mercado and Victor Rodriguez. We are talking Bellator 161 Czech Kongo versus Tony Johnson Jr., the kind of headliner that makes you go, oh, you guys got a card going this week, I see.
Yeah, in all fairness, there is relevancy for the heavyweight title in Bellator, so at least there's that.
Sure. No, I mean it's definitely not. It's definitely a fight that is occurring that has meaning down the road. It's just not a fight that's occurring that has meaning right now.
I don't know if maybe this is something that we should address now or a little later, but I don't understand why this is necessarily the main event. Even though I guess, yeah, sure, there's title implications later, but it's not really something that
over
is
Joe Warren.
I'd probably put Joe Warren at the top of the card.
I don't know.
I mean, he's a more recognizable figure, and there's less potential for
What? More recognizable than Kongo?
I don't know, dude. I don't know. Kongo and Johnson, it's both of them that I'm referring. I mean,
but Serwin Kankai, like.
Kankai, hey man, listen,
He's
you
no
can
headliner.
put up some front scrambles and all that. I don't know.
But he's not a headliner yet.
No,
Yeah.
not
It's a card without a headliner. Like
Yeah.
that's I think the big thing. That's why I say when you see Czech Kongo versus Tony Johnson Jr. on the top of a Bellator card, you're like, I guess you guys wanted to put on a card this week. It's not, you're not building anything around the ability to make that fight.
Yeah.
On that note, though, we are going to talk about the main card. There's Daniel Pineda on the undercard of this, and woman's strawweight or flyweight bout rather, Kenya Miranda versus Emily Ducote.
Yeah.
But I'm not seeing a lot on this undercard otherwise that really needs any time or interest. You guys?
No, man, we good.
Okay.
Again, the disclaimer. Look, no disrespect to these fighters. It's just that there's mostly loners from regional organizations and not anything of any consequence later on. So,
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain point where you're asking yourself, why am I talking about 11-22 Warren Stewart versus 18-12 Nick Gonzalez?
I'm sorry. I think that fight's on the main card.
I think that's a typo.
Oh, okay.
That's a typo, yeah.
Okay.
No, I believe that's just a mistake.
Here's a fun fact, though. That fight's supposed to have happened about 3 times already. They had booked that fight, and it hadn't happened due to injury or just random cancellation.
Why would you be so like needing to book that fight?
The world needs this. I don't know what
Maybe there's something we don't know at stake here. I don't know.
Yeah, true. Maybe this is like a regional, like a gym pride thing, and somehow being 11-22, you still feel like you have something to defend.
Yeah, that pride has been you kicking that pride around since like 2009, dude. You gotta let that shit go. Some point, you gotta let that die.
But so yeah. Otherwise, let's just jump straight into the card and straight into a lightweight bout that I'm happy to see. Derek Campos versus Jamil Chan. And Eddie, what are your thoughts on this fight?
I think this has fireworks written all over it. I mean, both of these guys like to get down. They like to knuck. I mean, it spells excitement. This is probably going to be the highlight of the evening, or at least it should be. Jamil Chan is absolutely a savage, and I mean that with all due respect. His flurries, they remind me of Mike Zambitis, if you know who that is. He's a K1 kickboxer guy, but he just has these flurries that are so violent and powerful that, I mean, you have to get out of the way. You have to get out of the way of him. On the flip side, though, he has shown some lapses in his ground game. We've seen him get, kind of dominated on the ground a bit, although he has been able to get back to his feet. Most of the time, it's due to the other guy messing up more so than him setting up a sweep or threatening with a submission. He's more the type to kind of just hold on and hope that the ref stands him up to get back to the feet. So, I mean, that's kind of an issue, especially against a veteran such as Derek Campos, who also has the firepower, but also has the wrestling. And we saw that against Melvin Gillard. In that first round, he shot in on him, took him down, and held him down for a good part of that round. So if Campos implements the same kind of game plan, I don't see any reason why he shouldn't get the victory here. But if Jamil lures him into a brawl, I don't think it'll end well for Campos. But I'm picking Campos second round submission, probably rear naked choke.
All right, Vic, what are your thoughts here?
I appreciate what Eddie just mentioned as far as that callback to Zambides. And if you haven't seen his fight with Shahid, that monster kickboxing fight where Michael Chavello literally said, "I am going to have a heart attack." Stellar fight. Excellent reference there. Yeah, not much is known on this side of the world of what Chan is capable of. He's a Dutch fighter who's got a very, very heavy kickboxing style, very thudding, low kicks. Sometimes depending on his opponent, he'll sort of choose to like hunch over and really try to implement his counter game. I'm not sure how that's going to work against somebody like Derek Campos, who's got much more of a use of range and is able to sort of, pick guys out from the outside and try to use his wrestling and maybe pin a guy against the cage. Now, it's going to be a really difficult task here because Chan is very, very strong. He's a very dynamic athlete, very explosive guy. His best hopes are likely going to be to get him down to the ground and keep him there, which I can see happening. I'm just not sure. And another thing is that Chan's cardio is a bit questionable to me. I don't think I've really seen him do well in later rounds of fights. So I'm going to have to go with Campos on this one. It's a safe pick, but it's really pretty much the sensible one. I don't know necessarily about getting a finish. I certainly think that there could be a decision here. Maybe not as a very fun one, but it seems like the likeliest of outcomes here.
This fight makes me a little. It makes me a little sad because Jamil Chan is kind of what I think. Like, if I'm looking at what actually makes somebody a prospect, Jamil Chan is like the great kind of prospect for me of guys that like I look at them, I'm like, you're an awesome athlete with a awesome arsenal in one skill set, and if you could get to a real camp, you could be a great fighter. If he could get to like a big U.S. camp that could really mold him, but that doesn't seem like it's going to happen probably. And at some point, sooner or later, he'll get tracked into just being the fighter he is. And I hope he gets to show off in the U.S. more because he's super fun. He's super awesome to watch, but he really has to be like in his element. If he's taken out of that, he goes downhill in a hurry.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry to bust in here with this, but it seems like if anything, Bellator's banking on this being a slugfest. But I don't know if they're really, I don't know if that's really what they're going to get.
Yeah. The odds on this one, Jamil Chan is the underdog, plus 114 to plus 110. Derek Campos, the favorite, minus 136 to minus 149.
That's a little closer than I would think, honestly.
Yeah.
But on the same token, Jamil definitely has the sort of firepower that has given Campos fits in the past. Guys like Gertz and Patricki and Chandler, except he doesn't have that kind of well-roundedness to, execute those kind of things. So I still think the line's a little too close.
Yeah, it's close. I think it's just one of the things where Campos is also, like, he's lost enough that he's not necessarily the dude you trust to be like, he's going to go out and he's going to get a win every time, Like, even when he has the advantage, he will win because he has the advantage. Derek Campos is not necessarily that dude. But he's got some good wins in there, too. Like, I expect him to win. I expect him to get this. But I can see why it's not terribly wide. That brings us to the next fight on the main card, which is a women's flyweight bout. Anastasia Yankova versus Sveta Arteaga?
Yeah, that's good enough.
Why not?
Yeah, why not? Let's work.
What are your thoughts on this, Vic?
Yeah, well, Yankova is obviously someone that Bellator really has some good expectations for. She's pretty, she's well-spoken, she fights well. She's also pretty dynamic as an athlete as well. She's fun to watch in some of her bouts. Problem is that her kickboxing base and where she started in MMA and what she's getting into now, it's kind of a different kind of a different flavor, and it's going to hurt her, because she's going to be fighting people that are mostly wrestlers, like Arteaga, who's really mostly someone, one of those crazy Idaho wrestlers up there, First Nation folk that are just putting on a very heavy top game and just pounding people out. I'm not really sure how. I mean, Yankova she should be favored theoretically to win this fight, but I can certainly see Veda winning this fight because of the fact that she is, number one, she seems a lot stronger. She's fought pretty big opponents, and she's actually been able to do fairly well with them. Not only that, she's pretty smart about where she starts to strike and then being able to use that to pass and get to a better position. I'm just not really sure Yankova is there yet, even though, again, her striking has looked sharp and she's very accurate with her strikes. She's very good at setting up her kicking game, too, although she doesn't show it that much in MMA necessarily. Yeah, she's got some submission wins. I mean, all her wins so far as an MMA fighter have been by submission, but I don't know. I'm not seeing it. Her first fight for Bellator was against an opponent that was pretty much outclassed, so I don't really think there's much to take from that. And even though Arteaga hasn't fought any major notable names either, I don't know. It seems like this is more of a push than it should be. I don't know where the betting lines are, but I'd actually go with Veda on this one.
All right. What are your thoughts on this, Eddie?
It's an interesting matchup. I really like that Bellator is going for the flyweight division as far as women go. I mean, I think it's an awesome way to maybe even bring in those UFC 115ers who are just a little too big for the division. But, I like this fight. I think it's going to be a good test for Yankova. I like how Yankova has been working on her grappling in her MMA fights. All of her wins are by submission, which is cool, very intelligent, I think. And she has a plethora of combat sports experience. And that definitely a plethora. Is that too big?
No, would you say she has a plethora of submissions? I would not like to think you would tell me that, or tell me that she has a plethora of something if you do not know what a plethora is.
A plethora is a large amount.
Oh man, you're not even getting this whole Three Amigos thing. What a waste.
What? I have no idea what you're talking about.
Have you never seen the Three Amigos?
Dude, just because Eddie's got facial hair doesn't mean Eddie's fucking 14 and a half years old. Are you asking him these questions about some shit from 1978? What do you think is gonna happen?
You see the Three Amigos, and then that whole joke will make sense.
Next thing you know, Data's gonna drop an old man reference about some shit from I don't know, Donald Sutherland.
Vic, have you not seen the Three Amigos either?
I did a long time ago, but yeah, Eddie, it is a cultural touchstone, and you really did yourself a disservice there. You had one job, Eddie. One.
I missed the Three Amigos. Whoops. I remember it was always on Comedy Central too, and I'm like, this is lame. No.
Well, that's fighting words now, motherfucker. Oh wow.
Anyway, all right. Sorry.
Ooh.
Yes.
All right. So back to face punching. Okay. So, yeah, this Vita chick. She is relatively new to combat sports, but she definitely was in. I saw an interview with her, and she said she was real into sports growing up. She played basketball and whatnot. So I think she will probably be the bigger, more athletic, more physically imposing person in this fight. All of her amateur fights were at 135, and her pro debut was at 135 also. So she'll be moving down. She has a striking base, predominantly boxing and Muay Thai, but she is a blue belt on the ground, I believe. So there's that. I don't know. We saw Yankova's debut. It was brief, but she got this headlock takedown that was just, you're not going to be catching that here. But that's not going to work. And if she tries that, I think she's going to end up in a very bad position here. There's not much to go on, but I'm going to have to go with Yankova here. I'll just buy into the hype, and it's hard to legitimately pick someone here, so I'm gonna pick Yankova. I think her plethora of combat sports experience is gonna be the difference here.
All right, I like the faces when you're trying to convince yourself, can talk yourself into picking her. I'll pick.
Because I know, this is such a gimme fight, It's
I know.
I love the fight. It's an intellectual version of Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo. There's reason behind it. You're just fuck. I don't know.
So yeah, the odds on this are probably outlandishly skewed. given the way you guys are both talking about this. Yankova is at 419, minus 419 to minus 455, and Arteaga is at plus 341 to plus 325.
Well,
So
that's ridiculous.
really not being given much of a shot at all.
No.
I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
That's a bad move.
It wouldn't be crazy to put at least $5 on Veda, just to, you know.
Yeah, that seems pretty skewed for somebody in Yankova who really has no wins over any competition of note and is like there's just not a lot to go on there, even if she is fighting out of AKA. That brings us to the co-main event: Joe Warren versus Sirwan Kakai. Eddie, talk me through it.
This is an interesting matchup. It's almost like a crossroads match. You know, we're going to see where these guys are at. You know, Sirwan Kakai, he kind of had a lot of promise to him. He was in the UFC. He had an exciting bout and then lost a close split decision to Frankie Saenz. Got cut due to some weirdness with not wanting to be a short-notice guy. So he comes over to Bellator, faces Joe Manglo, and just kind of starts really flat and doesn't start getting going until, you know, halfway through the match. So it's kind of like if he loses this one, then that's 3 in a row for Sirwan. And where does that put him exactly? Is he going to stick around in Bellator? Does he try a different organization? I mean, I don't know. And on the flip side of that, you have Joe Warren, former Bellator champion, coming off one of the most devastating technical submissions I've ever seen, preluded by one of the most spectacular suplexes I've ever seen. So I mean that's kind of a tough thing to come back from. Man, part of me feels like Joe Warren might be a little too past his prime. I don't know, man. This one bothers me here. This one bothers me. I feel like Joe Warren definitely has the kind of grappling pressure to give a lot of people fits, but I don't think he's going to give Kakai fits here. I think Kakai has good enough grappling defense. I mean, he held his own with Frankie Saenz, who is a phenomenal wrestler. So I don't think Joe Warren has enough tools to supplement his wrestling if it doesn't work. So I'm going to pick Sirwan Kakai here. I think he's got the better chance to stuff the takedown and maybe even get a late finish in the third.
Vic, what are your thoughts? Are you also doubting the former featherweight champion?
Well, here's I want to start off with Sirwan Kakai for a moment because, I mean, assuming that he does get another loss, that would make him 0-2 in Bellator, and he'd be on a 3-fight losing streak. Now, he is still only 12-4. Now, and not only that, he is still a very talented fighter. He is only 26. He hasn't really been fighting he has been fighting since about maybe 2008. So
he's been fighting a long time for a young kid.
He's been fighting, he has been fighting for a while, but I don't think 1 or 2 more losses necessarily seal his fate or anything like that. And I don't think a loss to a former champion like Joe Warren necessarily gets him cut from there either. I guess it really depends on how he does, and if he has a performance that allows him to acquit himself, like it's a close fight, or he just does fairly well and just ends up losing anyway. I don't know. Maybe there's something they can parlay out of that, but fine. Either way, I got to disagree with whether or not he's going to be able to hang with Warren in terms of his ground game. Warren's takedown game, his wrestling pressure, all of that is not the same as the sort of Kakai's game, his submission-based game and his scrambles and everything else don't really necessarily play into the hands of that. So while he is a very good submission fighter and he's really good at using his position and his butterfly hooks and his half guard and everything to get to to either get out of trouble or get to a better situation, I don't know if that's really going to be the best thing against someone like Joe Warren, who in some instances has been fighting pretty smart. The guys that have been beating him are guys that are super crafty or just an incredibly dynamic athlete, like as we saw with Darren Caldwell. I mean, we did see Galvao hit him with that knee bar. I mean, granted, Warren wasn't looking that bad, but he certainly wasn't winning that fight either. Galvao is just a crafty veteran who was able to really use his experience and everything to put that together and catch him in a great submission. I'm not really sure that Kakai's going to have those chops to be able to do something similar. I don't. I mean, not that he's not good. I just don't know if he's on that particular, if he's in that particular direction, when it comes to the kind of fighter that would do that to Joe Warren. So I got to go with Warren on this one. I think that, combining his coaching staff at Jackson Winklejohn, hopefully he keeps it together here. This isn't an opponent that's going to give him that he's going to be intimidated by, or that there's no super pressure on him here to win or lose. I definitely think Warren's going to take that.
Yeah, this is interesting because, I mean, Warren is at this place where he's been good. He's won multiple titles for Bellator now. He's been unexpectedly good over his career.
Oh yeah.
But man, did he look flat in that Caldwell fight. And Serwan Kakai is not Darian Caldwell, but it's a good fight in that it's a return to okay, now you're gonna have to fight a guy that you're back to fighting a normal competitor after that terrible performance. And how do you do? Do you show up the same as you used to? Because Kakai has the same number of fights as Warren. Weirdly, it's not a major experience depth difference, but it's
level of competition extremely different, though.
Yeah, level of competition is extremely different, and age is extremely different. Warren's rubbing up on 40, and at lighter weight divisions, especially as dudes get older, those are so speed dependent, and speed is one of the things that really deteriorates as you get older.
Yeah, it's one of the things that deteriorates first.
Yeah,
that's a very big thing.
So it's an interesting fight. It's a tough fight to pick. It's a big crossroads fight for Warren, because if he loses to a fight like that, it's hard to see him contending again.
But the thing is, Warren can definitely win this. He has the kind of style that wins rounds.
Yeah,
and Kakai has the sort of style and slow starting that loses decisions. So.
Yeah. The odds on that are notably close. Serwan Kakai is coming in at +100 to -105. Warren -121 to -137. So odds makers are seeing this very close as well. As an experienced much younger fighter, I might be willing to put a chance on Kakai coming out the winner here, just for being on the right side of the aging curve.
Yeah, way more upside for sure.
I can see that.
That brings us to our main event: Czech Kongo, Tony Johnson. Vic, what are your thoughts on this fight?
Oh, Christ. Fucking dreadful. That's what it is. Look, man, I don't... We have a lot of fun talking about stuff like that, poking fun at certain things. But I respect these two for being the guys who go in there and take their lumps, man. It's an unforgiving sport, and it's a tough thing to do. But Czech Kongo has not been fun to watch in ages. The last few fights I can remember being actually exciting that Czech Kongo was in were probably the Pat Barry fight where he was losing, or the fights that he actually lost, like the knockout to Mark Hunt. I don't really, since going to Bellator, his style has adapted to a slower style where he tries to, either work guys from outside, get a clinch, and either take them down or knee them until their bodies quit, or just take them down, lay on them, hit them a couple of times, and then just, do barely the barest of minimums to make sure that he gets a win. And of course, you're going to have your shorts grabbing, your fence grabbing, your nut shots. It's kind of sad, really, in a way. But he's going to be taking on a guy, Tony Johnson, who is far less experienced in MMA, but has a pretty impressive wrestling resume, and yet at the same time is also not very fun to watch because he's known for grabbing guys, taking them down, hitting them a bunch of times, and then basically the timer runs out. Now, it's not necessarily their fault that they can't finish. It's not something you can do on demand. But at the same time, it's like, man, and Johnson's got some pretty decent names from the regional circuit on his record. I mean, he
It happens to a lot of guys, I think.
did end up
What you're
being
trying to say.
there, which, it doesn't really mean much. And he did have that loss to Daniel Cormier, which there's no shame in that. That was when, I think that was about the time that he was bobbing back and forth between Strikeforce and the regionals. But regardless of that, I just, on paper, I would imagine that Johnson would have the chops to be able to just take Kongo down and control him, but I don't think he's going to bully him around. I don't think that physically he's going to be able to keep going for those takedowns to implement his ground game and then be able to do something substantial with that. I really think Kongo's strength and his takedown defense are going to do well for him here. He's going to probably be able to give him some really good shots standing. And then, maybe he might get a finish later on, some elbows from top or something. I don't know. But unfortunately, I got to pick Kongo on this, and it'll probably be what it is. I hope I'm wrong. I hope it's an exciting fight, but it doesn't have the makings of it due to the way that both of these guys usually come to the cage.
All right, Eddie, what are your thoughts?
This fight is definitely interesting, and I don't think I would necessarily suggest people tune in for like a slobber knocker or anything like that. But I think it's definitely going to be competitive, and it's going to be a grind, and it's going to be long, maybe, unless Tony catches him early, which I think is a relatively good possibility. He's won 3 straight coming off dismantling of Rafael Butler, which was a mauling. I mean, he absolutely mauled him. And I actually spoke to both guys, and Tony's already campaigning to fight Matt Mitrione. And that's a little bit alarming because it makes me wonder if he's kind of looking past Kongo and already, trying to move on to the next thing. But at the same time, it's like that hunger. Like, he is hungry. He wants the title, And I asked Kongo, like, hey, do you want the title? And he's like, a fight's a fight. So it's like, there's different hunger levels there. And, I don't know how much water that holds, but, for what it's worth, it's a thing. But Tony Johnson, man, I think he's really good at setting up his takedowns, especially with his overhand right. I mean, he will launch that thing and then blast that double. And that overhand right has plagued Kongo in the past, as we've seen. I mean, Frank Mir, Roy Nelson, Mark Hunt, the list goes on. So, I don't know. Kongo, on the other hand, since he started fighting in 2001, he has successfully competed twice a year. And that's crazy. I mean, twice a year for, how long is that, 15 years? Like, that's insane. And he says a lot of that is just fighting smart. And that involves not going out there and banging with heavyweights. It involves putting them up against the fence and grinding on them and, switching up your style. So, he's definitely evolved, but I don't think that's the kind of thing you want to be doing with Tony Johnson. You want to keep on the outside. You don't want to let him grab you. Much like Spartan, Vinicius Spartan that Kongo fought in his last fight. He stayed on the outside. He did get hurt late, but he was able to keep the range. But I can't see him doing that with Tony Johnson. I don't think he can keep him off of him. And I can't trust Kongo to beat guys at the top of the heap because I haven't seen Kongo face guys at the top of the heap in a long time. And when he has, your Vitaly Minikovs, your King Mo's, he's lost. So I think this is more of a question of whether or not Tony Johnson is at the top of the heap. And I think this might be his breakout fight. So I'm going to pick Tony Johnson here, and I think he's going to get the finish.
Well, for all the people that love heavyweight prospects, I'm sure they'll be happy to hear that because Johnson's definitely somebody that, 5 years ago, people were like, oh, Tony Johnson could be a great future heavyweight.
He might be ready. I don't know.
But I don't know. The weird thing with heavyweight, though, is that almost always it seems like some new guy comes along and everybody's like, oh, can he be a new great heavyweight? And then they get beat by the same dude who's been good for the past 10 years. It's like, oh, is Todd Duffy going to be about to be the next great big heavyweight? And then he Overeem comes out and just puts puts a stamp on him in like 10 seconds. And you're like, nope, guess not.
No, you do not have a future. No.
Did you see Duffy try to ask for a rematch after that in the locker room? He was so funny.
Yeah, so like there's a long history in heavyweight of guys coming up and everybody being like, maybe he's finally gonna be like, get over that hump now, and it's just so impossible. I hope Johnson does it because Czech Kongo as a headlining talent does nothing for anyone.
No.
But it's kind of a toss-up. It's a toss-up proposition, and it's probably not going to be pretty no matter how it goes.
No, and the other thing is here with Johnson is like he'd have to really make some very pronounced improvements between his last fight and this one. I mean, I don't know. I don't really see that level of great growth between fights that you see from other. Well, maybe this is a bad example, but like Mighty Mouse Johnson, there's a very clear improvement between one fight and the next. I don't know if I'm really seeing that kind of progression from him that will help him take on a guy.
Let's go with Francis Ngannou. Let's not compare a heavyweight to a
Well,
fight.
there you go. That's a far better example. Not only because he's a heavyweight, but he's actually looked better. Or Derek Lewis. Like, okay, well, shit, this guy's actually been taking some jiu-jitsu.
Tony Johnson has a win over, by the way. Derek.
Yes. Yeah, I mentioned that,
yeah. Eddie, are you just like packing a tent over there? What the hell's going on?
Packing a tent?
Yeah, you got a bunch of static, bro.
There's all this rustling going on, and it sounds like you're like
never mind that.
Bag into a.
You don't want to know.
I keep looking at my cat because I think she's playing with some packaging, some Amazon shit. My wife.
All right. We're about to close the show anyways. It doesn't matter. The odds on this fight, Tony Johnson is the slight favorite, very slight, -116 to -125. Czech Kongo -106 to -110. It's basically dead even in the odds. It's heavyweight. It's weird. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
And that pretty much wraps us up, I think. I'm not really interested in devoting a whole lot more time to this card. You can find me on Twitter at TheZaneTime. You can find Eddie on Twitter at TheEddieMercado. You can find Vic on Twitter at VicMRodriguez. You can find all three of us over at BloodyElbow.com. Give this video a like. That's this on YouTube down there. That helps us a bunch. Subscribe to MMANation.com, DOTCOM, that's our YouTube channel. That's where you get all the latest Bloody Elbow shows, videos, interviews, analysis, all that good stuff. And we'll be coming at you with the 6th round after the fights this weekend and Knuckle Up. And then, back next week with Heavy Hands and If I Did It and Care Don't Care and MMA Vivisection, all that good stuff. The next fight next week is UFC Brasilia, Chris Cyborg.
Rising next week.
Lena Landsberg. That should be exciting. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.